I accepted a sinister fire lookout job in Idaho, unveiling 7 cursed rules that haunt my mind. Ethan stumbled upon the postcard for the fire lookout job when everything seemed to be spiraling. It was a whimsical, isolated promise, the kind of escape that whispered to a desperate man. He thought he might find solace in the wide-open wilderness, that somehow those high, deserted mountains would shield him from the crushing weight of his life. But standing in front of the nearly abandoned lookout tower, a chill crept up his spine, wrapping around him like thorny vines. The towering pines loomed, black against the steel-gray sky, and the unsettling quiet enveloped him like a thick fog. That haunting beauty turned to dread as he inhaled the deep, eerie silence, a silence that seemed to draw out his worst fears. The air was loaded. Each creak of the tower felt like a warning, each whisper of wind a ghost's breath. Inside, a faded handbook lay waiting, 7 cursed rules penned in jagged letters, warnings from rangers long gone. Instinct urged him to laugh them off, but an unnatural chill settled in the cavern of his chest, urging him to pay heed. Stay aware. Beware the shadows. While dismissing them as mere folklore, Ethan felt the pulse of each rule beat steadily in his skull, a promise of peril lurking on the edges of perception. As the sun dipped below the horizon, vicious wind started to howl. It rattled his makeshift home and wrenched ginormous shadows across the floor, like claws creepily attempting to claw their way in. Ethan's heart pounded in his ears as howls echoed through the trees. Not distant, nor ordinary, these were wild and ravenous sounds, gnashing and scratching at the boundaries of his sanity. He rubbed his arms, cold sweat trickling down between his fingers. Was it truly wise to leave his family behind for isolation's fabrication of safety? His last phone call echoed in his mind, a tangle of fear interlaced with his attempts at reassurance. Despair clawed ferociously at him. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing night, he faced torment. The howling would begin as soon as darkness settled, a cacophony rising from the whispers of the trees. Ethan tried to shake off the creeping dread. He studied those cursed rules more closely, felt the air thicken with their weight. His grip tightened on the faded handbook as he broke one, turning the lantern on after dark. Guilt seeped into his mind like water filling a cracked basin, overwhelming him. Shadows flickered ominously around him, pressing in, urging him to retreat into the tower's claustrophobic confines. Then, one night, he found it, the hidden trail, scarcely visible beneath a mat of dried leaves. The handbook had warned, veer not from the path, lest you meet the darkness. The trail breathed life into his desperate spirit. A sick curiosity prodded him closer, calling him toward that foreboding abyss. As he stood on the threshold, between ruin and desperation, he felt the forest hum beneath his skin, shadows pulsing around him, daring him to step further. Would he succumb to the pull of whatever darkness lay ahead, or could he cling to the sliver of hope that his family still wanted him back? The choice loomed before him, as treacherous as the night itself. Ethan stepped onto the hidden trail, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The darkness whispered around him, wrapping him in threads of doubt. Each twig snapped underfoot echoed like a shriek. He turned to look back at the tower, its silhouette dark against the gathering shadows. It felt like a cage now, a prison of his own making. Step after hesitant step, he ventured deeper into the forest, driven by the storm surging within him. Was it bravery or madness? He couldn't tell anymore. The air thickened, hanging heavy with the scent of pine and something else, something rotting. Shadows danced leaves above him, a flicker of movement that sent chills racing down his spine. The howls grew fainter behind him, replaced by a submerged hush. It felt unnatural. Ethan's thoughts spiraled as he recalled the rules etched in the faded handbook. Never stray from the path. But the path beckoned, and desperate people often ignore warnings. As he moved forward, unease settled like lead in his stomach. The trees were not simply trees, they were watchers, their gnarled branches clawing at him like skeletal hands. He squinted into the murky darkness, hours of isolation amplifying every fleeting sound. Suddenly, a rustling from the underbrush froze him in place. Was it a deer? Or something sharper, something hungry? Ethan's breath hitched, catching like a tongue on a barbed wire. He struggled to focus, to see through the dim light spilling from his small lantern behind him. Nothing but shadows loomed ahead, and the murmurs of the forest crept closer, drawn by his fear. Then came a whisper. So faint, nearly drowned by the rustling leaves. Ethan, it was his name drawn out like silk spilling from a torn seam. Panic raced through his veins. He knew no one was supposed to be here. His heart thundered as he turned, glancing back toward the tower, now a distant glow behind the trees. A part of him screamed to flee, but another pulled him deeper. Against his better judgment, he followed the voice. It grew stronger, cascading through the damp air, weaving a delicate thread of familiarity. Ethan, each step felt heavier. The air thickened, twisting like a noose around his neck. He stumbled upon a clearing shrouded in shadows, moonlight barely breaking through. In the center, a pile of stones rose like a crooked spine, the ground around them scorched. Ethan could feel its pull. He crouched to investigate, heart pounding. A stench of decay seeped from the stones, sending waves of nausea crashing over him. This was no burial ground, it felt like an altar, a monument to something ancient and malevolent. Suddenly, he heard it again, that beckoning whisper, stronger now, more insistent. It crackled against his eardrums like static. Ethan, the shadows deepened, swirling as if alive, gathering at the edges of the clearing. He felt them closing in, moist breath brushing against his skin, suffocating. Just as he opened his mouth to call out, the ground trembled beneath him. Stones burst apart with grinding force, revealing a dark, gaping maw. Instinct screamed at him to run, but his feet remained rooted in place, eyes wide as he watched a twisted figure emerge from the shadows, faceless yet familiar. It loomed closer with every heartbeat, each pulse a desperate plea for escape. What was this thing? A reflection of his own fear? Maybe it wasn't a monster at all, but something he brought with him, something he could never outrun. One final push of strength surged through him. Ethan stumbled back toward the path, the tower now a fading light of hope. He had to escape before the darkness swallowed him whole, but the whisper echoed in his ears as he fled. You can't run, Ethan, you can never escape. He dared a quick glance over his shoulder, heart racing. The figure stood obscured by shadows, slowly fading back into the darkness. Everything about it felt wrong, yet terrifyingly familiar. What other mysteries awaited him beneath the trees? The darkness stretched like a blanket ready to smother, and within it, secrets yearning to be uncovered. When he stumbled into the tower's embrace, the familiar creaks and groans surrounded him like the hum of old memories. He slammed the door shut, trembling hands resting on the smooth wood. But deep inside, a nagging thought clawed at him. Were they even safe in the lookout? Or had something far worse come with him from the forest? The night was far from over. Something was still waiting. Ethan pressed his back against the door, his breath quickening, pulse racing like wild horses. He could still hear that whisper, as if it had etched itself into the walls. The lantern's feeble light flickered, casting elongated shadows that warped and twisted around him. He scanned the interior of the tower, searching for signs of comfort in its worn structure, but it was a hollow shell now, devoid of safety. The cracked wood and peeling paint felt like the remnants of faded memories, reminders of other souls who sought shelter and failed. Ethan's mind raced with thoughts of the thing outside, lurking at the edge of the shadows, teasing and taunting. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from above. He jumped, heart launching into his throat. Had it returned? Or was there something else living here with him? Whatever it was, it wasn't friendly. The thought made his stomach churn. With hesitance, he climbed the rickety staircase, each creak groaning under his weight. The air was thick, pulsing with a palpable tension, like the stillness before a storm. As he reached the top, he glanced around the cramped room, now illuminated only by the dim glow of his lantern. Old maps were pinned to the walls, depicting paths he had no intention of following. The air felt charged, electric, and he could almost hear whispers entwined in the sound of the wind like a chant of old. He approached the window, peering out into the abyss of the forest. The world beyond had turned into an ink wash of black and gray. But something flickered in the distance. Like embers buried under ash, a faint light pulsed through the trees. Was he imagining it? Or was it another lure, another whisper calling him back into the darkness? "What do you want?" he shouted, voice wavering, breaking the silence. The wind howled back, mocking him, but the light remained stubbornly still, unwavering in its pull. He felt like a moth drawn to a flame, aware of the danger yet unable to resist. Then came a soft scratching at the door, almost delicate, persistent. Ethan's heart pounded as he backed away, feeling trapped by walls that seemed to close in on him. Scratching turned to knocking, then to a thudding that echoed, as though answering his fears. "Who's there?" he called, gripping the edge of the table. The knocking stopped, plunging him into an oppressive silence. It was a pause heavy as a tombstone. Then, in that stillness, the whisper returned, wrapping around him once more. "Ethan, let me in." His mind raced. Each second felt like an eternity as he considered his options. Letting the unknown entity into this already warped world could mean unmasking a terrifying truth or sealing his fate. The last rule, he muttered to himself. The handbook flashed in his mind. Never invite the dark inside. But he felt the pull, the warmth of whoever beckoned from the other side. It was old, like roots intertwining through history. Heart thundering, Ethan glanced back at the window, the flickering light still bleeding through the branches. Was it time to confront his fear or time to run again? He took a deep breath, mind racing with a decision he never wanted to make. But as he turned back to the door, the knocking started again, more feverish this time, insistent, desperate. Just then, the lantern flickered one last time before extinguishing, plunging him into utter darkness. Ethan stumbled back, crashing into the table, his pulse thudding in his ears. The whispers rose, intertwining with panic. "Ethan, you're mine," and just like that, the entire tower shook, and the shadows closed in on him, embracing him in that suffocating tightness. What had he let in? And who or what was waiting outside, ready to pull him back into the very depths from which he had fled? The darkness was thick, a suffocating blanket wrapping around Ethan like a vice. His heart raced while the shadows buzzed with a life of their own, whispered accusations mixing with his own wild thoughts. He clenched his fists, feeling the rough-hewn edges of the table digging into his palms, grounding himself against the chaos swirling in his mind. A chill slithered down his spine as the whispered name echoed again, lingering like smoke after a flame. Ethan, it was both a calling and a command. Fear clawed at his throat, leaving him breathless, legs trembling beneath him. What did it mean? Did it know him? He lurched away from the table, hands outstretched. "Leave me alone!" he shouted, voice cracking. Silence returned, stifling, oppressive. Ethan strained to listen, but only the pulsing of his own blood filled his ears. Then it hit him, a light draft brushing against his face, a shift in the air that felt charged with anticipation. He turned instinctively toward the door. The knocking had faded, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. But within that stillness, Ethan could feel the weight of something waiting, watching. He realized he had to move. The flickering light from the forest pulled at him again, its beckoning promise sharper now. Panic surged through him, making up his mind. He rushed to the window, pushing aside the dusty frame to peer into the night. The trees whispered secrets he could not grasp, and there it was again, the pulsing light undulating steadily like a heartbeat. Just as his foot found the top step of the staircase, a crash reverberated above like a clap of thunder. The very structure of the tower creaked, a monstrous protest against his escape. Ethan froze. Could whatever lurked at the top have emerged from the very darkness he feared? "Don't stay!" screeched a feral voice, sharp and without compassion, right in his ear. Ethan spun around, the world spinning with him, breath hitching as he faced the empty room. Had he imagined it? Had the shadows swirled into a shape just that moment before he turned, teasing him with phantoms? He stumbled back into the corner, heart racing as realization dawned there was nowhere left to hide. Every crevice of the tower felt alive, throbbing with ghostly energy. Ethan took another breath, the air tasted foul, as if it had absorbed the dread that permeated these walls. Suddenly, the walls thrummed, and a ghastly visage materialized before his eyes, shimmering in and out of focus like a distant memory. It was a face of sorrow, twisted and contorted, crying out in a silent plea. "Help us," the apparition whispered, the plea garbled by despair. The figure pointed toward the door, a skeletal finger trembling with urgency. "But what can I do?" Ethan shouted into the void, grasping the walls for stability. "End it before it claims another." The visage faded back into shadow, leaving Ethan gasping, the air electric with fear. He could not stay in this tower. The forest light pulsed more vividly now, drawing his eye like a magnet. Was it their salvation? Or a trap more insidious than he had imagined? With the weight of the tower pressing down upon him, he made a choice. Ethan burst from the small room, barreling down the stairs as fast as his shaky legs would carry him. The shadows at his back twisted like living things, clawing at him. He was propelled forward by desperation, but he slammed into the door at the bottom, a jolt of adrenaline giving him strength. It creaked open, revealing the pitch-black night outside, with the faint glow in the distance flickering insistently. He stepped into the void, heart thumping as he raced against time, the echo of the soul's warning fueling his flight. But he could already sense it. The air shifted around him, thickening with intent as he plunged into the shadowed embrace of the forest. What kind of horrors awaited him in the embrace of that light? And would he discover the truth he sought, or merely plunge deeper into the depths of a darkness from which he could never return? Ethan sprinted into the forest, branches snatching at his clothes like desperate fingers. Each step felt heavy, as though the ground was reluctant to let him escape. The pulsating light ahead felt impossibly close, yet it remained just out of reach, a cruel tease amidst the shadows. A howl shattered the night, echoing through the trees, raw with hunger. Was it a wolf? Or something worse? He tightened his jaw, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He had to push through, had to find out what lay ahead. He could almost hear the whispered warnings of the apparition again. End it before it claims another. With every step deeper into the thicket, the air thickened, choked with fear and wet leaves. Swirling mists began rising from the ground, wrapping around him. Ethan tried to shake them off, but they clung like the darkness behind him. The distant glow transformed into a beckoning siren, its warmth promising safety or at least an escape from the terror behind him. Suddenly, the whispers returned, clearer and louder. Ethan helped. The voice was haunting, pulling him. Ethan stumbled, nearly losing his footing. It sounded like the voice from before, filled with sorrow and need. His name hung in the air, a ghostly echo ricocheting off the trees. "Who are you?" he shouted, frustration mingling with fear. He was met only with silence, each rustle of leaves sounding like laughter. What was happening? Was he losing his mind? Ethan pushed on, following the light that now flickered impatiently, casting silhouettes of twisted branches on the ground like grasping hands. He was close now. He could feel it. And then, just as swiftly, the glow vanished, plunging him into disorienting darkness. Panic surged as he turned in circles, searching frantically. "Please," the voice pleaded, emerging from the dark. "Where are you?" He felt a chill settle deep in his bones, his breath fogging in the sudden cold. "Help us." "You have to come back." Before he could reply, several figures coalesced in front of him. Ethereal shapes with hollow eyes that seemed to swallow the remaining light. Their mouths moved, whispering secrets he could not hear. "Help us," they murmured again, and he stumbled back in horror. His mind raced. Were these souls like the one he saw in the tower? Were they his salvation, or were they here to lure him deeper into despair? "I can't help you," Ethan roared, feeling the walls of reality closing in. "I don't even know what you want." The figures shifted closer, each movement eerily synchronized, their ethereal forms barely brushing against the thicket around them. The smell of decay filled the air, rancid and suffocating. With a sudden surge of desperation, he tore away from the phantoms, his legs pumping, lungs burning as he sprinted again. He heard them call to him, a ghostly choir drowned by his racing heart. "I want to be like you," he shouted back, feeling absurd yet desperate. But the darkness answered in kind, descending around him, disorienting and sticky. He thrust his arms forward, searching for the glow that had vanished moments before. Panic clawed at him, and for a moment, he feared he might be lost forever, swallowed by the chilling grasp of the night. Then lights burst back into view. He skidded to a halt. The beacon flickered and danced ahead, blinking urgently, like a heartbeat. But as he drew closer, dread welled inside him. Something wasn't right. The light was not warm, it felt cold, empty. He hesitated, a sliver of doubt creeping in. What if this was a trap, another trick by the shadows that hungered for him? Ethan steadied his breath, the flickering flame casting ominous shapes all around, beckoning him forward. "Ethan," the whisper returned, savage and sweet. The darkness shrieked behind him, and he faced forward, feeling the overwhelming pull of that cold light. Could it hold the answer he sought, or was it merely the beginning of an even darker nightmare? Every choice had consequences, and as Ethan's foot lifted to take that next step into the unknown, he knew that whatever lay ahead, he was racing against a fate far more terrifying than he could ever have imagined. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest as he stepped closer to the flickering light. It was an odd illumination, pulsating like a dying star, both magnetic and repulsive. He could see now that it was coming from a lantern hanging from an ancient tree, draped in heavy branches that twisted like knotted fingers reaching for him. "Help us!" The voice was louder now. It surrounded him, echoing off the bark, reverberating through the ground. Was it his imagination? Or had the trees listened? He hesitated again, battling the instincts that screamed at him to turn back. His breath fogged in the tense stillness, and the stench of rot clawed at his throat. But fear of the darkness behind him was stronger than the fear of whatever awaited ahead. With a steely resolve, he reached forward, grasping at the lantern. Cold metal met his fingers, shocking him. It felt like the touch of the dead. But then, as he pulled it closer, the light flared bright and searing. Suddenly, shadows danced wildly, revealing twisted figures lurking within the shadows of the trees, their hollow eyes fixated on him. A wave of despair washed over Ethan. He wasn't alone in the woods after all. The figures began to materialize, their forms surfacing from the mist like a nightmare surfacing from a dream. Faces, gaunt and sorrowful, stared at him, some pleading, others accusatory. "Why have you come?" One whispered, its voice splintered, shredded by an unseen wind. I don't know," Ethan stammered, overwhelmed. "Help us, you're the only one," another figure rasped, reaching out like a moth drawn to fire. "You must take our place." A chill gripped him. The words scrambled through his mind. Take their place? What did that mean? Sweat trickled down his back, and he felt a twisting knot of horror tighten within him. He pulled away instinctively, putting distance between himself and their outstretched hands. The lantern swayed, casting frantic light upon their spectral faces, illuminating the tales etched upon their skin, the despair, the anger, the hopelessness. Images flooded his thoughts, too quick to grasp. He could see them, he could feel their pain. Ethan stumbled back, eyes darting through the trees, searching for a way out. The darkness felt more alive now, swirling, pressing against his skin, seeking a way to claim him. The hollow-eyed figures began to converge. End it before it claims another. Their voices melded into a cacophony, merging with the call of the night, each note piercing deeper into his psyche. With an agonized scream, He felt the shadows surging, wrapping cold fingers around his legs, pulling him down. In a desperate bid for escape, Ethan turned and ran. He sprinted blindly, branches clawing at him, but the figures were relentless, their whispers rising to a fever pitch. The lantern's light flickered behind him, pulsing like a heartbeat, yet he dared not look back, terrified of what he might see. But as he fought through the fog, something glinted ahead, a dirt path lined with thick underbrush, promising a way to safety. He could feel hope, fragile yet vibrant, pushing him to go faster. Suddenly, a piercing wail cut through the air, chilling him to the core. The darkness momentarily parted, revealing a small clearing bathed in a wrong yet inviting light. The figures hovered at its edge, pleading still, each one promising terrible secrets. Ethan hesitated one last time. This beacon, this path, it felt wrong but also irresistible. In that heart-stopping moment, his mind raced with choices. Did he dare approach the clearing? Were the figures really lost souls begging for salvation, or had he become just another unwitting pawn in the evil game woven by the forest? As the howl of the shadows behind him grew louder, he could feel the darkness clawing at his resolve. Ethan had to decide, would he risk it all, stepping into the light that whispered promises, or would he turn and fight back the gathering night? The moment hung heavy, thick with dread. In the inky silence, he took a deep breath, ready to make his choice. What awaited him, hope or damnation, remained to be seen as the forest held its breath, waiting for his move. Ethan took a trembling step toward the clearing, heart racing as the figures' whispers clawed at his sanity. The lantern's glow illuminated paths twisted by time, each route promising different horrors. He could feel the energy shift, a bone-deep chill wrapping around him like an unwanted hug. The clearing pulsed with a strange allure, but the figures behind him were relentless, their hollow eyes filled with desperation. "You can't ignore us," they shouted, their voices echoing like thunder in the oppressive night. The shadows behind him swirled in angry frenzies, black tendrils reaching out as if to drag him back. "Do I go into the light?" he thought, visions of escape flashing before his eyes. "What if it's worse out there?" The figures' faces remained locked in haunting expressions, mouths frozen in cries of anguish, pleading for the salvation he didn't know if he could give. "Please," the singular voice broke through the chaos, clear and urgent. "We were trapped like you. You have to choose. Do not let this place claim another." Every word pierced Ethan's mind like nails, twisting his gut tighter. A sudden pulse of bravery shot through him. "I can't abandon them," he exclaimed, his voice rising. With renewed resolve, Ethan faced the figures. "How do I help you? I don't even know what you want." "Take our pain," they whispered in unison. Sharp, knotted fingers reached through the air, clawing at the fabric of his reality. "You must understand our suffering, become one with us." Ethan's breath caught. Darkness swelled around him, a vortex of despair and longing. The weight of the forest was suffocating, squeezing his lungs tighter with each passing second. He shook his head violently. "No. I want to take your place. I will find another way." The tension shattered like glass as the shadows recoiled, their faces twisting in anger and sorrow. A whirlwind of dread enveloped Ethan, their shrieks resonating in his bones. "Fool! The forest will decide your fate. You cannot escape us." With every ounce of his strength, Ethan dashed into the clearing, desperately trying to outrun the weight of the echoes behind him. The light grew stronger, blinding him for a brief moment, but when it faded, it revealed a stark contrast: the heart of darkness before him. The trees closed in, branches reached out, scratching at his skin, slicing through layers of hope, but then, something magnificent took hold of him. The ground shimmered beneath his feet, pulsating like the beat of his heart. It wasn't a mere illusion, this place was alive, vibrating with the cries and anguish of lost souls. In that moment, he understood the light was both a refuge and a trap. Just then, a horrible realization dawned upon him. What if stepping into the clearing wasn't salvation? What if it was merely the next step into something darker? Panic surged as he felt a force pulling him, inch by inch, deeper into the core of the clearing. "Join us," came the whisper from the shadows, broken souls intertwining with the darkness surrounding him. Their eyes glistened with the weight of despair, the burden of their fate. Ethan yanked back, wringing his hands in desperation. "I can't die here. Not like this." He could feel the pull tightening around his chest, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Every second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, a blinding light exploded from within the clearing, swirling around him in a maelstrom of spectral dreams and whispers. The figures shrieked, their cries rising in dreadful harmony as if their last shred of hope was being torn away. In that moment of chaos, he glimpsed something moving behind the figures, something far more sinister than he anticipated. Ethan's mind raced, caught between the unbearable temptation of the light and the suffocating darkness creeping closer. The ground beneath him trembled as he faced the choice that could seal his fate, and then, the ground split open, revealing a gaping maw of blackness. Would he leap into that unknown terror, or could he turn back, somehow fight for his life against the relentless pull of the shadows? Time froze, and all he could feel was the terrible weight of the entire forest's gaze upon him. Ethan's heart thundered against his ribcage, the darkness around him breathing, pulsating with unyielding hunger. The chasm beneath him loomed, a void that promised not just death, but an eternity of torment. Panic clawed at his throat. Should he leap? He couldn't shake the eerie feeling that whatever lay in that abyss was far worse than a mere end. Not like this, not ever. He shouted, fighting against the pull of despair. With every fiber of his being, he fought back. He stepped back, forcing his feet into the dirt, grounded against the hunger of the void. The shadows surged, furious, screaming for acceptance. A cacophony of pleading voices begged him to step closer. "You belong with us," they wailed, desperation dripping from their words, threatening to drown him. But the flickering light from the heart of the clearing, blinding and beautiful, beckoned him. In that moment of clarity, a plan sparked in his mind. What if I could turn this against them? He thought. He could feel the shadows tightening, their tendrils reaching for him, but he would not submit. He had to disrupt the darkness's grip. With deep breaths, he focused on the light, calling out, "You need to let me pass." The words tumbled from his mouth, each syllable laced with his will. "I will not be the one to take your pain." For a split second, silence enveloped the clearing as if the forest itself paused to listen. The shadows hesitated, recoiling slightly, their forms flickering like dying embers. Something shifted within them, a glimmer of fear. "Yes. I see you," Ethan shouted. "You're trapped here, just like me. But I can fight. I can escape. You're not real. You're just echoes of pain, and I will not join you." As his voice rose, the shimmering ground pulsed angrily, vibrating with the weight of his conviction. The light intensified, pushing back the darkness like the first rays of dawn shattering a starry night. The figures faltered, their eyes once filled with empty desperation now glimmered with a flicker of hope, the tiniest spark in the abyss of their despair. "Hope," one of the figures whispered, "hope can break our chains." With a fierce roar, Ethan lunged toward the glowing heart of the clearing, blazing with defiance against the creeping shadows. His feet, now fueled by determination, found purchase as he propelled himself forward. He could feel the shadows snatching at him, their fingers grazing his skin like icy knives, but he pressed on. "Give us strength." The voices howled, now a chorus of desperation and need. The shadows recoiled, struggling against their own weight, their forms shifting and twisting. "We'll return." Came the shriek, echoed by the cacophony of lost voices. Ethan burst through the shimmering light, feeling the sensation of a barrier crackling against him. It washed over him like a wave, a searing fire of energy coursing through his veins. He was inside something far brighter than he believed existed, a sanctuary in the heart of the torment. But then, as he turned to face the forest again, the ground beneath him began to tremble. The air thickened, suffocating, as the figures writhed in frustration, held back only by the thin veil of light. "Don't you dare leave us!" They screamed, voice intertwining in a symphony of rage. What had he unleashed in turning away? Would they come for him once more, or would the forest rise against its own twisted puppets? Ethan's chest heaved as he stepped deeper into the light, now unsure of what lay ahead. The questions ricocheted in his mind. Was this his escape, or had he just entered another trap? And just before he thought he was safe, he felt something brush past him, cold and ominous, whispering, "You can't outrun your fate." As the shadows began to swirl, merging back into a tempest, Ethan knew that the forest wasn't done with him yet. What had he truly awakened? Ethan stumbled into the heart of the light, his senses bombarded by an overwhelming brightness that almost seared his eyes. The warmth of it enveloped him, contrasting sharply with the cold touch of shadows that still lingered at the edge of his consciousness. The whispers, the haunting wails, they faded but never fully disappeared. Panic tightened like a vice around his chest. What is this place? He gasped, the air thick with a sweetness that felt unnatural. The light pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. He surveyed his surroundings, a sanctuary carved from brilliance, yet it felt wrong somehow, like a mirage disguising a greater horror. With cautious steps, he ventured deeper. A marbled path wound through towering trees made of shimmering silver. Leaves rustled some distance away, yet the sound felt far too alive for comfort. They were whispers of secrets, urging him to listen or perhaps to turn back. He couldn't shake the dread creeping into his bones, gnawing at his resolve. A soft glow outlined a figure ahead, a woman cloaked in silver, her features delicately illuminated. She turned slowly and met his gaze, her face a mix of sorrow and strength. "Ethan," she spoke, her voice melodic but steeped in a sorrowful echo, "you've stepped into the light of the lost. Here, you can save them, but not without consequence." "Who are you?" Ethan's voice trembled. "I am Mira," she replied, stepping closer. "I was once trapped in the darkness, just like you. But through the light, I found a path. You can do it too, but you must embrace the rules." "What rules?" His heart raced, the memories of the shadows clawing at his mind. She flicked her wrist, and a glowing document appeared in the air, ink swirling as if alive. 7 rules govern this light. Break 1, and the cost will be steep. As she spoke, Ethan felt a shiver crawl down his spine. First, never look back at the shadows. They will find a way to twist your memories and desires. Second, listen not to the voices from the dark, they can lead you astray. Third, fulfill a lost soul's wish, for they hold the key to your ability to depart. Mira paused, her expression darker, burdened. The fourth is the most crucial: trust no one, not even those who seem kind. The darkness wears many faces. The fifth, the light demands sacrifice. A piece of yourself must remain here for the lost. The sixth, you must face your fears. Only by confronting what you dread will you gain true strength. And finally, should you leave, always carry a shadow with you, it's the only way to remember. Sacrifice? Fears? Ethan's voice fell to a whisper, uncertainty wrapping around him like a noose. Mira nodded slowly, an understanding deepening in her eyes. To save the lost, you must be willing to lose yourself. The air crackled with tension as Ethan absorbed the weight of her words. Would he risk it all? The shadows beckoned behind him, their fingers whispering promises of despair. The forest trembled, resonating with a response that felt ominous. What will happen if I fail? He asked, dread filling his stomach like a lead weight. Then the chains of the lost will bind you as they bind me. You'll become yet another voice, another shadow recalling their torment. A glimmer of fear flickered in her eyes. You don't want that, Ethan. Just then, the ground shook violently, a reminder of the chaos outside the sanctuary, as the shadows swirled anew in protest. With chaotic cries surging, Ethan felt the pull of their darkness, strong and relentless. If I do this, I can help you? He asked, desperation threading through his words. Mira nodded, a flicker of hope igniting. You can save us both, Ethan. But remember, Once you pass through to the lost, there's no turning back. A loud crack echoed from deep within the woods, a signal of the shadows rallying their forces. Would he dare step closer into the light's embrace or retreat to the clamoring dark behind him? Could hope triumph over fear one last time? The shadows loomed, eager for his decision, whispers weaving promises of freedom and despair. The weight of choice hung heavy in the air. What would he sacrifice to break the cycle? As he took a step forward, the forest trembled again, and a chilling voice echoed, "You cannot escape what you've awakened." Ethan stood at the precipice of light and darkness, a battleground of his own making swirling around him. The whispers of shadows clawed at his ears, mingling with Mira's desperate pleas. The glow of the lost beckoned, promising salvation wrapped in a dangerous embrace. Yet, he knew, somewhere deep inside, that every choice echoed through eternity. Sacrifice, he echoed, a lump in his throat. What must I lose? Myra's gaze was steady, but sadness clung to her like damp air. You may lose your past. Your memories. Even your identity. But in return, you could save them. Ethan's heart raced, memories of his family flooding his mind, the laughter, the warmth, the smiles. All of it could slip through his fingers like grains of sand. His voice trembled, what if I can't bear that? What if I forget them? The trees outside the sanctuary creaked, shadows encroaching, their tendrils reaching for him with every passing second. He could feel the darkness pulsing just beyond the shimmering walls, eager to draw him back into despair. It's a risk, Mira replied softly, her voice soothing amidst the chaos, but to help the lost, you must embrace what you fear the most. Only then can you break the cycle. Ethan swallowed hard. This was the moment it all hinged on his choice. He had been running from the darkness forever. Maybe it was time to confront its grip. I accept your challenge, he finally said, a surge of courage coursing through him. If I can save you and the others, I'll face whatever I must. As he spoke those words, the ground beneath him trembled violently. The dark figures outside howled, a cacophony of desperation and rage. You'll regret this. They screeched, their shadows lunging at the borders of the sanctuary. Stay strong. Focus on the light. Mira urged, her own gaze holding the weight of countless stories lost to time. Ethan nodded, stepping forward, feeling the warmth wrap around him like a blanket. He could feel their eyes on him, countless souls, waiting for liberation. Gritting his teeth, he prepared himself to face whatever darkness awaited. Mira raised her hand, and the glowing document flared anew, illuminating the swirling shadows. To fulfill a lost soul's wish, whisper their desire into the light. Speak it honestly, with your heart unburdened. Okay, Ethan breathed, closing his eyes. What do you desire? Show me. Images danced through his mind's eye, tales of tragedy, sacrifice, lives halted mid-breath. He focused, pouring his heart into the words that sprang forth, I want you to be free, all of you. I want you to find peace. The shadows jerked, a collective intake of breath, and for a moment, silence fell. The ground shook beneath him, and the air crackled with energy. Ethan could taste it, the tang of desperation and hope twisting together like a tempest raging within his chest. The darkness writhed violently, angry and disoriented. No. You cannot free them. They belong to us. Suddenly, the figures surged forth, reaching for Ethan, but he stood resolute. You won't take me. The energy of his declaration reverberated, resonating with the radiance surrounding him. The ground pulsated again, revealing a rift of light and darkness, a tumultuous scene of past regrets and futures unmade. The figures clawed, but Ethan pushed through the barrier, forcing the air thick with meaning and promise. Let them go. He roared, his voice ripping through the chaos like the first light of day chasing shadows. Someone must dare to break the chains, to defy despair. I will not be your pawn. The shadows shrieked, and in that moment, he felt the weight of countless souls shift. There, amidst the torment, flickered a thread of brilliance, an echo of hope. Yet, it carried a price, one he would pay. As Ethan thrust his arm forward, the light erupted in dazzling splendor, engulfing the lost souls in a cocoon of warmth. The voices swelled, a symphony of relief and anguish mixing sweetly. "Thank you, thank you," came the chorus of the lost, their sorrow being lifted into the light. "You've shown us the way." Mira stepped closer, her spirit overwhelming in its radiance, merging with the light. "You are their savior, Ethan. Do not fear the consequences." A coldness seeped through Ethan's bones, revoking his memories of who he was. With each flicker of brilliance, fragments of his past drifted away, images of family, laughter, the warmth of home began to fade into nothingness. But it didn't matter. The joy of freeing others swelled, threatening to burst inside him, and then it was done. Ethan stood alone, the light shimmering where souls had once been sustained in torment. The shadows receded, howling into the distance, bitter echoes of a defeated darkness. He was left amidst a serenity that felt foreign yet soothing, the lingering weight of countless burdens lifted into the realm of freedom that he felt different, like a candle flickering in a soft breeze. He realized he could still feel the shadows on the edges of his mind, whispering memories he couldn't grasp. Yet he accepted this, knowing that a piece of him remained, small threads of connection reminding him of who he once was. "Will I ever be whole again?" he pondered aloud, gazing into the shimmering remnants of light that began to dim. Mira's voice fluttered in the gentle breeze. "You will live through the stories of others, carrying the shadows with you. You were never meant to forget." Ethan nodded slowly, accepting his new horizon, a boundary between light and dark. He looked back, catching the last glimpse of the radiant glow dispersing into the sky like a falling star. Though his past slipped away, he would stand sentinel, embodying their hopes and dreams, and with a newfound courage ignited in his heart, Ethan walked forward into the future, ready to meet whatever shadows lay ahead. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you about something crucial. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that haunt your dreams. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm hunger. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Ethan's journey. Trust me, we want to hear it all, and for the love of stories, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.